Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound. And we have a fourth and a first. This is my fourth interview with wonderful Dylan Desmond, and this is the first time that the guy shows his face. Yes. Oh, I'm very happy to have Dylan and Jesse, both from Bellwitch, here on the show. We're not talking about the next Bellwitch record, which I still hope will not take too much time because the Clandestine Gate is already nearly 3 years old. But we want to talk about the new Stygian Bough record. Dylan knows how it goes. The first thing is always the plug of the day, and I'll give you a moment to think about which project you two guys want to plug. And this time I just simply took inspiration from your wonderful new records, Volume 2. And I want to plug one of the best German funeral doom bands out there, and that is Aha. So shout out to those guys. And now one of you two can start with telling us which project, band, or whatever people should listen to right now because you love it.
I can go first.
Yes.
And this is an old record, but I just found out about it somehow over the last week and a half, and it blows my mind that it even happened. But it only happened. It's under the moniker Mirroring, and it's a collaborative album between Grouper and Jesse Fortino, who goes
Oh,
by
yeah.
Tiny Peppers. And I had no fucking idea it existed. And I'm like a huge fan of both of those projects. And it's such a sick record. I've been listening to it sort of nonstop for the last week and a half since I found it. That's my plug of the day.
That's a very cool. When was it done? Do you know that?
2012.
Well,
So in the middle of both of their
yeah,
sort of upswing,
yeah.
but it's so good, and it's got the coolest mixture of both of them. Some of the songs sound like individual jammers, and then there's a couple that it's clearly them together, and it's so badass.
That's a good one. So, Dylan,
It's a
now
good
you
one.
have to give us yours.
I have been listening lately. I've been listening a lot to a French woman named Eliane Radiju. I might be butchering her name. Um, Eliana Radiju.
Mhm.
Um, to my understanding, and I think I'm in the right direction with this. There's probably specifics that I'm going to get wrong, but in the 70s, she was maybe 60s, I think 70s. She was getting commissioned from like public radio in France, Paris, I think, to make these like kind of like soundscape sort of avant-garde, what we would call today noise or drone records. And she had this like really elaborate synthesizer setup and a tape machine, and she would just make hours and hours and hours of this wild droning, interdimensional craziness. Um, and yeah, the way I understand it is this like a music journalist was kind of like finding her material maybe like in the past 5 years, 10 years, and kind of like this woman seems to have like a mountain of material that it doesn't like isn't really talked about. Like, why is no one talking about her? She used to be on the radio all the time. And he went to interview her at her house, and he like walked in and saw her whole house is just lined with magnetic tape of shit she's recorded through her life. And he was like, whoa. Like, I just walked into a museum, and she was kind of like, oh yeah, these are just old recordings I did. And they just started plucking them out and listening to them. And it's like, it's just phenomenal. It's so wild. And there's so much of it. And a lot of it's starting to get released from back then. And it's great. It's a lot of it's drone, so it's very slow moving, very requires an amount of patience, I suppose. It's like good for a lot of things. Anything that requires patience and listening to music during that, I think it's great for that. It's not good for no, it's good for everything. I was gonna say it's not good for energetic activities. Like
Well, I
sometimes I'll
think
go,
looking at it, I just looked it up, and just looking at the covers, I would say it's probably not something that you need if you are trying to do a martial arts training session.
right, right, yeah. I was thinking the same thing, but then
Uh,
sometimes I
yeah,
try to go jogging every day.
yeah,
Sometimes having a drone while jogging kind of
yeah.
makes everything feel very focused and uh singular, which is really nice.
Gives you time to think, right?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it feels like a step-by-step soundtrack to whatever's happening. Like if all of a sudden a different tone starts getting modulated in, it's just like, whoa, that happened right when I stepped right there. So all of a sudden everything's a little different. Kind of just sort of float away with it. Yeah. Love it.
So, guys, on the new record, on Volume 2 that came out on November 14th, um, in one of the press releases, I got the idea that one idea behind the Stygian Bough being a kind of name, that a lot of it is about contact. You know, you basically took, is it James Frazier's The Golden Bough as like an inspiration. And I looked it up a little bit, and it's the way that everything seems to be about contact between things, entities, beings, however we want to call it. And that a lot of those contacts are associated with a certain worth. I'm not, like certain price or whatever we want to call it. But I thought, because there are two wonderful examples giving, like if you receive a gift from your dead friend, it's a golden thing. But if your food drops onto the floor, all of a sudden that contact makes it rotten. And I thought, and I don't know who of you wants to answer that, but isn't a lot of that contact based on how we perceive contact in the way that we define what is good and bad?
100%. Yeah. No, it's all a matter of personal perception, which is, um, our personal perceptions are linked to our upbringing, our culture, our greater society, our mood, our if we're hungry, if we're tired, if we're any of that. I think 100%. Like sometimes I'll drop food on the floor and I won't even pick it up. It's like, oh no, no, no. Other times I'll pick it up without even washing it off, just throw it in my mouth. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just depends on
Yeah.
what. Maybe. Go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's like it's contact within a context within a culture. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, so if it's like, yeah, if it's your floor, it's different than if it's someone else's floor, let alone a different floor in a different country.
Mm.
But I guess I think that the way I guess I'm assuming that the way you're relating it back to the Golden Bough would be that it's actually cultural relativism. So one thing that could mean dirty in one place could mean clean in the other, but like the roots of the dirty and clean would be the same.
Yeah. And I mean, in different contexts and different cultures, the idea behind Stygian might be seen completely different. In some cultures, it might be a negative thing, others, it's a positive. And here we come to the idea of contact. What is great about Stygian Bough is that there is not just contact between the three of you, but it's also a lot of connection, right? It's not just that there are three people who get together, but there is some kind of deeper connection between all three of them.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a wait. I feel like I'm about to answer a question that maybe you didn't ask.
Just go ahead. I can come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the collaborative nature of it, it's very, very much that. Like Erik has Aerial Ruin has a very established uh everything. He an Aerial Ruin album is clearly an Aerial Ruin album, and I would say the same thing for a Bell Witch album. Like it's from the start to finish of the catalog, they're all very clearly a Bell Witch record.
Yeah.
And obviously the overlap is that Erik is on almost all of those records, almost all of those Bell Witch records. So there's always been that kind of connection between the two projects. And when we initially did volume one, the idea was kind of let's bring this together in a more cohesive way that is more resembling a singular unit as opposed to two separate units. And of course, that was a collaboration record, and we approached it as such. So there's listening back to that, there's sections that sound like, well, this was obviously written by Erik, with Jesse and I playing as like a Bell Witch accompaniment, and then likewise, there's sections where it's like obviously this is like a Bell Witch piece that has like an Aerial Ruin accompaniment.
Yeah, for example, the vocals, right? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And we were trying to kind of put a taste of everything in there to kind of like make a full spectrum of the two things. And in that, there's sort of there's a lot of things being combined under one umbrella, but they're all still kind of they're not necessarily they're not diluted. They're kind of potent. Whereas with this album, and if we're going with this contact theme, I think in our as we kind of processed what we did with the first record, and it was like, okay, how do we do that again? We approached it differently, and it was clearer to us like this should be its own band. Obviously, like this should be sort of in one sense, the two projects get diluted, but in another sense, the one project becomes more potent and becomes more unified as its own different entity. It's a singular band. It's still a collaboration, but I think it's changed into something that's more. It's more of its own band at this point. And that's kind of fun to have. It's almost like an offshoot branch from two separate trees that sort of connect together.
You want to say it's a bough?
You could say it's a bough.
Yeah. And I think it was like necessary that we approached it that way, because I think that if you use Bell Witch as the example, like a two-piece anything creates a dichotomy, and you can like revel in that. And I think that that's kind of what Dylan and I do at this point, especially as like in a live setting, even almost in a writing setting. It's like we're kind of living in our own little worlds and figuring out like how much we want them to interact and how much we want them to like have tension between them in some regards. And there is like this element of like, the pendulum swings one way. It's like Dylan's leading this. It could be his voice. It could be his hands. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like I'm leading it. And like sometimes, and it's like this really cool, like little like waltz or something. But with three people, you can't really do that in the same way. And I think that like the first record, it's kind of what we were trying to do. It was like Aerial Ruin's the one person and then Bell Witch is the other, except Bell Witch is two people
Yeah.
with a whole lot to say and like a whole lot that they can do at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was like a little bit wily when it came to like putting that into like a cohesive unit, you know? And so I think that we did a good job with that on the first one. It was really cool, like the way it manifested itself.
Yeah.
But it felt a little bit more to, at least from my perspective, like a battle almost. It was like, it's like, this is the Bell Witch part. This is like the aerial ruin part. And then we're going to like meet in the middle and then holy shit, there's like some screaming and shit. Like that was crazy. And like, you know, and it like kind of bounces around a bunch. And so I think that like, I know from my perspective, it was really important that like we thought methodically about, you know, when is something need to happen? You know, we don't need to force the presence to be there. It's like, when does it need to happen? And yeah, long story long, like at least for me, it was like the screaming doesn't need to happen. Like, what if the screaming didn't happen? And we had a singer that was like the lead singer, you know, who has a clearly better voice than I have, you know, or different voice, or like there's more to say maybe within that dynamic of three than with the two, you know?
Yeah. It's very interesting the way that you describe it. I also had a feeling listening to it. I had the feeling as if I was listening to a very bad mathematical equation where two becomes three becomes one. And I mean, I also already loved volume one, but with volume two, I had much more of a feeling as if, okay, this is, and that's also why I always talk about Stygian Bough. I never call it Bell Witch and Aerial Ruin, because with this new record, I have a feeling as if, you know, seeing that, for example, on Bandcamp, you know, when it says like Bell Witch, Aerial Ruin, I have a feeling as if it's just a bad naming, because to me, this is now a free piece. And it's much more of a free piece than it was before. And first of all, I think from a musical perspective and from a music lover's perspective, we should thank you. However, and that is also something that I liked, is when we come back to Contact, in a way, you also elaborate on the new record, on the first musical contact that the three of you had, which basically goes back 12, 13, 14 years when Erik contributed to The Rose of Endless Waves. And now the first track on volume 2 is Waves Become the Sky. So I thought like, okay, here they show where they met, first contact. And they also show that contact has a temporal dimension, because now we take it again and we turn it into something different. That thing is, of course, no coincidence that you do that. But who came up with the idea?
I think it's been, at this point, it's been collaborative. I think the original idea was, I mean, the Rose of Endless Waves idea was originally a Bell Witch
track on Longing, yes.
Yeah. And then Erik came in and kind of like, he was like, what's the song about? You know, like, cause there were already lyrics that Adrian and I had. And Erik said, what am I working with here? How do I write my lyrics? And we talked about it. And he took that idea and then made his own part. So it kind of like, you know, had its own little offshoot right there. And then when the first Stygian Bough came out, he was trying to keep working off of that same theme, because of the initial idea. I mean, we'd been discussing all the while, like this is sort of like in the early days of Bell Witch, before we were technically a band. Adrian and I were talking about trying to get Erik to be the lead vocalist of the band, and he lived in a different city, so it wasn't really a convenient or possible thing. But I think there was this idea when we started doing the Stygian Bough record of what if that had happened? How would this band be different?
Yeah.
What would that band have sounded like? Like Bellwitch probably never would have even existed. It would have been probably closer to what that first Stygian Bough record was. So that was always in discussion amongst the three of us. And I think that we've also discussed keeping that sort of like keeping attention to that spirit that we were trying to capture in those original moments, and letting that mold or dictate or direct where the new material goes, stylistically and of course thematically. And I think that's how we got here. The first track on volume 2 is 100% a direct reference to that initial track on Dulwich's Longing album. And I think it's great that Erik did that too. It's there were parts of volume 1. He makes a lot of lyrical references to the same thing on volume 1. But I don't think a song title didn't necessarily didn't get as clear of a reference. With Waves, he definitely he tried to make it loud and clear. Like, this is specifically talking about that. This is almost like it almost makes it like a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't trying to make a sequel when we were writing the song, but I think that it's still fitting to have that thematic extraction happening.
Jesse, how was it for you to now work on a record that is that is basically referencing a song that was written when you were not part of Bellwitch?
I mean, I think that, I guess ever since, because I knew Adrian and I knew Dylan as Bellwitch was becoming a band. And so I was kind of there from the beginning, and Dylan and I knew each other before that, from his previous band and my previous bands. And I think that, like, my duty in a lot of ways, and Dylan and I talked about it a lot when I was even joining Bellwitch, when that decision was being discussed, even in its infancy, was like, it had to always like honor, the approach. And especially once Adrian passed, it needed to honor that, original approach, the dynamics, but also to me, it needed to step away from it. And so from the moment that I joined the band in a writing perspective, because I was in the band, I did almost all the touring on Four Phantoms, mimicking what Adrian was doing. Mm-hmm. And then when it came to Mirror Reaper, which was our first time ever writing together, I wanted to try to like honor that and then slowly take steps away from it. And also make it extremely clear that it was two different people. Because my worst fear was that, especially once he died, that it would be like, oh, Jesse's just doing that Adrian thing. He's kind of ripping Adrian off, or like, and that's the egotistical, selfish version of it. The other way is like, I want to honor Adrian's part in this and make it
by not copying him, right?
By not copying him and making a dividing line.
Yeah.
And so like some and a lot of the motivating factors of me adding more all the organ and the electronics and like that whole approach created like this very sonic branch and moment where it's like the earlier Adrian approach is much more like it's like stripped down and raw, and then the Jesse approach is different than that. Moved away from the high vocals. Adrian's vocals are incredible, and so I think that like going back to what your actual question, working on a song that's referencing a song I wasn't on. Every song I've been on is referencing songs I haven't been on. So there's no difference to me. And I think that for all bands and especially all the projects I've ever been involved with, and especially also being a drummer. I think it's a drummer thing, but I've joined a lot of bands where I wasn't the original member. And it's really important as a drummer and also as a vocalist, whatever else is being wrapped in there. But drums have an ability to really change the same riff. And I think that there's an art to joining a band, and there's an art to honoring the discography that it's not always respected, you know? And sometimes that's on purpose. Sometimes they're like, we need to get this new drummer to change the whole vibe. But I think that with Bell Witch, because it was so intimate from the get-go, and then the death of Adrian made it way more weighty and intimate. It's like there's always been a respect to that through line. So like I don't ever want to do anything that would either step on or negate the like where the idea came from, but the goal is to push that idea as much as I possibly can.
Because that's also something that he would want both of you to do. Let's be clear. I'm very, very sure he would not want you to copy stuff.
Yeah. And so like Waves Became the Sky, I actually really enjoyed hearing Dylan talk about it in that way. And I thought it's a good question that you asked, because I hadn't necessarily thought of it in that way. But I love that story. And I love when bands have that story. And I obviously knew that was a reference to that song, but I like hearing it, because if someone decides to like this band out of nowhere now, or they stumble upon it, it's like a little bit of
whichever reason.
Yeah, it's a little Easter egg, you know? Yeah. And that stuff's really important, and I think it creates a concept that is consistent, and that's cool.
Fun question.
Yeah,
you go ahead, Dylan.
I just think that in like to riff off that same thing you were just talking about, Jesse. I also love that when like any artistic medium, be it a band that has multiple albums, be it a writer that has multiple books, like when there's a theme that weaves throughout, it makes each individual. Trying to think of an example, like I'm by no means give me.
We all know Pulp Fiction.
Sure.
And we all know which number from Ezekiel Samuel L. Jackson is quoting, right?
Sure.
In one of the Marvel movies, Nick Fury, aka Samuel L. Jackson, is standing in front of his own tombstone. And on the tombstone, it says Nick Fury, Ezekiel 3:25.
That's a cool reference. Yeah. And like that sort of thing. So like for Samuel Jackson to have that to be like, yeah, I'm making these little references throughout my whole catalog. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's fun. And I think that like it puts a common thread through all of his characters that whether, you know, and I haven't seen that movie that you're what is it again?
It's one of the Marvels. I think it's one of the Captain America movies.
Sure. But I don't know how similar his character is in that to his character in Pulp Fiction, obviously. But it makes them all the much more alike in that, and that's cool. And it's like it like gives a whole new depth to everything, and it makes one just consider it through a different eye. And then all of a sudden, like whatever his character is in Marvel, all of a sudden one can't help but think like, oh, how is that similar to this character that I know from Pulp Fiction? And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's an ambiguous connection, but how, you know, we're all just going to add meaning to that. And that's the good shit.
Yeah.
When like, isn't that what we're all trying to do in anything that we do?
A fun Easter egg also between the two tracks on Longing and now on Volume 2. They're even similar in length. The
Really?
original one is 13 minutes and 2 seconds, and the new one is 12 minutes and 13 seconds.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a that's real funny because we have a habit, I don't know if it's good or bad, of doing exactly that. Like with Clandestine Gate.
Oh, you mean the 83 minutes and a few seconds? Yes.
Well, when we went in to record that, we were like, in a recording project, there's usually a dead end or dead air at the beginning of it. Maybe at the end, there's some middle sections that have some space, and it's like, okay, we'll get to that when we start editing and mixing. And when we started editing and mixing and putting it all together, it got down to where we're like, this is the exact same length as the last album. And it's like, well, we have to leave at least 1 second more. So one, it's not the same length. And two, we can at least like joke to each other and say, well, we did a longer, we like improved upon the last model to some degree.
Yeah, we really outdid ourselves on this one. Like,
yeah.
One more second.
And that's funny to think that there's that same thing showing up in the Stygian Bough stuff to whatever degree. That's fun.
As you are already talking about track lengths, I mean, like, first of all, Volume 2 is much shorter than the last two Bellwitch records, but of course, the more interesting thing is it's 4 tracks. How difficult was it for the two of you to all of a sudden not write 83-minute opus?
It was different. And I think in a different project, it probably wouldn't occur to me the same way. But when Jesse and I sit down, it's just like, that's just the cap that comes on. It's like, okay, how do we expand on this? What more is there in here? What is not being explored? What direction hasn't been looked in? And how do we look in those directions and make this huge, vast canvas get covered in the right way? And obviously, a shorter song, I'm not going to say there's a limitation because a song's just going to be as long as it's going to be.
As it needs to
be. Yeah, as it needs to be. And I guess a good example would be the Told and Leadened, the last track on Volume 2. I'd been teasing Jesse about doing a drum solo on this record, and he was humoring me, but I could also tell he was kind of avoiding me. He was kind of like, whatever, he just needs to shut up. He'll give up on this. And me being the wonderful stubborn person I am, I thought, oh no, he's trying to avoid this. I'm going to dig in harder. And when we got into the studio and we were recording the Told and Leadened, we did a pass, and then Jesse just started going nuts, and Eric and I were kind of like, oh shit, he's doing it.
He's doing it.
And he just kept going. Yeah, we were like, whoa. And I remember kind of looking at Eric, and we were both just kind of like, oh, he's actually doing it. And I don't think we actually thought we were going to keep it, but he just kept going. And it was like, oh God, I hope he keeps doing this. And then, like that whole bit was just kind of improv at the end there. And it was very much that thing that I was talking about when Jesse and I sit down. I feel like I put on this cap. I think he put on that cap there in that moment where he was just like, how do I extract more out of this? And there, maybe there's kind of a little joke in there where he was kind of entertaining Eric and I, but it was also literally him extracting this idea, whatever the energy is in that idea, and extracting something out of the song that gave the song a whole new it really expanded the canvas on that song, and all of a sudden there's this whole like new, it's a different song all of a sudden. And it maybe it's better, maybe it's more correct now. I mean, whatever those mean. But yeah, there's always that I think in the Bellwitch lens, there's always a want to expand something further and figure out what more is in there that could be sort of explored and built on or captured. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
So go ahead, go ahead.
No, dude, you're good. Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't even know what more to say. I'm expanding too much on my damn answer as it is.
So, Jesse, you go ahead.
I guess I was just gonna say that I think that like we did though go into it with this intentionally planning to not do that. You know, it was like let's make like it was like we were there was this breadth of demo material that Dylan and Eric had come up with. It was like 90 minutes of it. It was so much. And then it was sort of like, where are the songs? Like, what are the songs? And it sort of, it was this like surgical process in some ways of like trying things out, seeing how they fit. And then there was also this element because we were treating it more like a band, like a three-piece band.
Yeah.
I think that there was like, at least in my mind and the way I was approaching this, it was more like through a power trio lens,
Yep.
where it was like, how do we make the guitar a fucking guitar? How do we make the bass a bass? How do we make Dylan's guitar hand more of a guitar? How do we make me more of a drummer and less of a percussionist? But all within the Bell Witch framework of like ultra minimalism, essentially. But then there's like flourishes of this isn't Bell Witch, you know, like it can rock harder. It's not like a test. It's like there's actually parts that you can tap your foot to and nod your head with, and like, and then yeah, there's like shredding parts. They're not all over the place, but they're there, and there's some fun drum shit too. You know,
Yeah.
God forbid, and it's cool, and I think what's fun about it is it makes a further division within the projects and people some people will latch onto that, some people will be like I don't get it, and that's fine. And I think that but what is cool is that for us as musicians, and I know for Dylan and I it really was challenging. It was like super different than a Bell Witch writing session or band practice. It was like, you know, um and we had the pleasure of doing it with someone with a lot of really cool, very different types of input. And his name's Eric Mogridge, you know, and he brings a whole different element to the vibe, you know?
Yeah.
I think the perfect example of what you're saying there, Jesse, is the second track, King of the Wood. Like that's a really good example of like, had that been not a Stygian Bough, had that been getting the Bell Witch treatment, there are so many spots in that where we could have just ripped it to shreds and added so much. And like when we were in the mixing process, I kept having the feeling of, oh, right there, this needs something. And it was like, yeah, but that thing that I think it needs would probably turn into like 15 or 20 minutes of material. And that's not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So, you know, it came to life in this incarnation, and that's totally fine. That song's great. I love that song, but like, I think a similar thing could be said of the Told and Legend, and Eric wrote that one, but I think that had the intention been to expand on things, I think there's a lot of room in that song to compositionally stretch it out and add, you know, theatrical moments, dramatic moments of huge, you know, of a larger scale than what we did with it. But so in that regard, it was a challenge to keep things concise, and maybe compressed is a word, which was an intention going into it. We wanted to do that. That was what we set out to do, and we did. You know, we achieved that, and I'm proud of it too.
You should be. There is something that Jesse already hinted at how should I say, dividing both projects, or basically all three projects, right? And at the same time, I think it's unifying and uniting the Stygian Bough project, and that is something that I would venture to guess I haven't heard on Bell Witch records or on Aerial Ruin records, and that is a certain proggish aspect. You know, I'm not talking about prog rock in the Yes or in the Genesis kind of sense, but a certain sonic. There are a few moments when it feels like, okay, here we have a sparkly guitar line, which could be, I don't know, some late 70s prog. Was that something that happened intentionally, or is it just okay that it just happened?
It's funny you say that. We have a friend in Seattle who interviewed us a couple years ago. I think I think it was during when Mere Reaper came out. I don't know
Uh-huh.
when yeah, it was on an old album. He interviewed us and he was like, "Okay, look, before I start taking notes on this, I just want to tell you guys that I have this theory that you guys are actually a prog band just being presented in this other, kind of like a different outfit or
Before you
different
go on,
costume."
I can see that because when we come to a mental attitude, then you are like
Sure,
all systems go.
sure. And on this record, we kind of dig into that too. That a lot of that polyrhythmic, polymelodic, whatever the
Polyphonic?
phrasing, polyphonic. Thank you. Yeah,
Polyphonic
polyphonic.
spree.
Yeah. Uh, as we're kind of like digging into some of that stuff, that gets pretty proggy in moments, and I don't think the intention is to. I mean, I think we're all Rush fans. Eric probably has strong opinions about Rush. I don't know which direction they would go in, but that sounds like something he would have a strong opinion about that I'm unaware of. Jesse, do you know Eric's opinion on Rush?
I don't. I know that they're not on the top of my prog list though. But like
Oh, ooh, Mahavishnu Orchestra.
maybe I'm the guy. No,
Maybe
yeah.
you're the.
Jesse is basically trying to be Neil Peart.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm Neil Peart minus because I don't have any fucking hair to wash. Um,
Is that a
sorry.
Pert Plus
But
joke?
but
Sorry,
Dylan
that was a
has
lot.
enough.
That was a lot. Um,
Pert Minus?
um,
Give me a fucking break.
no,
Where are we right now?
I don't know. I don't know what just happened.
But would you agree that, or do you also perceive that as some kind of there are some elements that one could identify as proggish?
I mean, so I don't think Dylan and I have ever, for example, like we've never been like, what would like Tangerine Dream do here? Like, or like, you know, I think that like Uriah Heep might be interested in like this part. Um, like we've never talked like that.
Yeah.
And we actually don't really talk about 70s prog together often, you know. But our setup, if we didn't have such strong guidelines around what we were doing with it, like we could tomorrow turn into a prog band if we wanted to. You know, we've
We
got
could
the
progress into that.
progress. Yeah, exactly. It's like we got the
Progressive to
keys.
progressive.
We can shred, like we could be shredding, you know, and like doing that thing. It's just we happen to be doing the opposite of shredding to most people's ears.
Well, and Jesse, a joke between you and I also is that a lot of times when we're working on a Bellwick song, and like we trim so much fat off of those songs that, and a lot of that material will come in and it'll be like kind of has a lot of movement to it, and we'll start poking at it. And it's like, no, this is not what we want this to be. And like it started off as a 5/4 riff. By the time we're done with it, it's just 4/4 with weird timing issues. Um, but it, but it, that happens all the time. Like it comes in a little more like progressive, and we usually just shave that off and it gets down to whatever it ends up being, which is less progressive. But I think what you're talking about hearing is the maybe remains of some of those things that aren't getting shaved off, which are probably we did a lot less focus on shaving that off on this record. It was more of kind of like a let's maybe try to embellish on some of those moments.
And there is the proggiest moment. Like I've joked around with the dudes and called it the slowest math problem ever. But like it's like in the Told and Leadened after the ambient part or whatever that's folky, when it comes in, it actually is a prog section. And we intentionally did flip the time signature around. Like the drums and the bass and the rhythm and melodic line are like a loop. And that's something that Dylan and I do all the time. And it's like switching the accent essentially, or deciding which sound is going to be leading and which one's following. So maybe that could, that's a prog trick maybe. And I think that any element of that's in Stygian Bough, I think is because of the tempo. It's like it's more it's a little faster. The drums aren't as sparse, so you can hear the time signatures more.
And you can hear the movement from one part to the next. Yeah.
So like, and just piggybacking on what Dylan was talking about, when we're writing Bell Witch material, from a drum perspective, for sure, we start out like almost 3 times faster, and it's like we're messing. I'm like shredding sometimes, trying to figure out like where the fills are and where the hits are, and then all of a sudden it just keeps. We're subtracting more and more and more and more till it becomes this like whole note percussion with fills, essentially. And then every once in a while there'll be like flourishes of movement.
But it even happens throughout the tour cycle too. We keep slowing it down as the months go on of touring it. To where like the last show we played for Clandestine Gate, the video guy came up afterwards. He was like, "What the fuck? Like, why'd you slow that down so much? Like the video was fucked up because of it." It was like, I don't know, we slowed it down. I didn't interrupt you. Sorry.
No, that's it. So if that's prog, that's prog. I don't know.
It's like the opposite of prog. It's like digression.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Dude, that's I like that.
So guys, first of all, thanks for all the insights into the new Stygian Bough record. And I once in a while try to, change things a little bit because I have a chance of having 2 people to talk to. And so I thought, as I already have done so many interviews with Mr. Desmond, I already told the guys before we started recording that this time we're going to switch the quickfire around a little bit. And both guys can ask their fellow band member 2 questions that they have never asked before. It can be something musical. It can be something like, why don't you have any kind of hair? I don't know.
That was my question.
Why don't you have any hair?
I can say that. If anybody can say that, that's me. So
Jesse and I are in the Thunderdome, basically.
You mean the Mad Max Thunderdome?
Indeed, yes.
So, who of you wants to go first? Who has like, okay, I need to know that, and we want to have a short answer.
Ooh. The question is the hard part. I got to think of like and I had one.
Oh, I know. I was just thinking.
There you go.
See, folks, they know each other already so well. Are no question.
I mean, we were roommates for like 5 years.
And you still both live. The bits.
Yeah, and we're in a band together. We've practically been married for like 2 decades at this point.
But while you are thinking, let me give you a question because we had it in our again, please.
Oh, I just can't think of anything.
I have one, and it's very, very close to what we've already had. Because I think we're all movie guys and nerds, and so let's think about classic 90s movies, and I'll give you 2 that both involve Tarantino: Natural Born Killers or Pulp Fiction.
Oh, Natty B, for sure. Natural born killers.
Yeah, I know. Dylan is still thinking.
I don't know if I have. Okay, I have watched Natural Born Killers. I don't know if I've done it sober, and I don't know if I've done it without probably a loud conversation happening while it
Oh, you mean
was
you don't know if
playing.
you were concentrating on the movie?
Yeah, I was definitely, yeah. I
Yeah.
was not concentrating on the movie, so I unfortunately don't know how to answer that question. Um, if Jesse had said Pulp Fiction, I probably just would have made a quick answer, been like, "Oh yeah, of course, Pulp Fiction."
No. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to give a fair answer.
So if nobody of you has a question, then I have one more, but I'll give you a chance. I just need to
Um,
choose someone.
I'm gonna
Yes.
get one.
Okay.
I don't have it yet, but I'm gonna get one.
Jesse, that means you also have to get one because we have to balance things out, right?
Okay. Dylan, if you had to have one soup for breakfast every day for the rest of your life, would you choose ramen or pho?
For me, that's very easy. I'll give him a chance to think. For me, it would be Filipino sinigang.
That was
That,
not one of the choices, my friend.
Yeah, but I'm not being asked, so I can say which one I would take.
That is
fair.
true. You were
That's
not
fair.
asked.
That's
So
fair.
I turn this back to Dylan.
If I had to have one for the rest of my life,
And
am I making
let
it?
me ask Jesse. Yeah, exactly. That would have been my question
Hell
too.
no, you ain't making it.
Okay.
This is like bomb shit. And further, what we're really talking about here, I think at the end of the day, because neither of us eat meat, is we're basically talking about rice noodles or wheat noodles. Like if you had to eat it every day for the rest of your life,
Yeah,
form of soup. Like where are we going here?
I think I would go with pho, and my reasoning is, and this I'm going with pho off of a slight generalization in my head, but I think that oftentimes the raw vegetable thing is more prevalent with pho, in my experience, and I'm into that. And I think that if I'm thinking for the rest of my life, and I'm thinking like, there's gonna become a time when I need to be eating healthy. I'm gonna be eating some raw vegetables, man. And yeah. I mean, when you get down to it, those are not wildly different soups, though.
Ooh,
Like,
when it comes to making, they are.
Okay, Dylan,
sure.
I've got another one for you. I'm interrupting. He said short answers.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Waylon or Willie?
Oh, man,
That's a hard one.
that's a hard one. I mean, 5 years ago, Waylon. Today, yesterday, I've been jamming Willie.
Hmm.
And that's not because I think Willie's better than Waylon. I think it's because I was listening to too much Waylon for a period of time and I needed change. And again, like the pho and the miso, these are not wildly different. If Waylon and Willie were soups,
Yeah, but
they'd
which
be
one do you want to eat every day for breakfast?
fuck. In that regard, I think Waylon is more
My answer is much quicker. I would choose for breakfast. I would always choose Willie because he's just putting you in a better mood to start the day.
oh, I don't
I
know if
dig
I
that.
agree
I
with
dig
that.
that.
A better mood. I don't know.
You don't want to start your day being so depressed all the time.
Willie Nelson has some fucking depressing songs though. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
whew.
like the guy also had some pretty depressive times, but nevertheless.
Like Just Breathe, that song by Willie Nelson. Oh, it rips your heart right out of your chest.
But remember, now you have to have a question for your bandmate here.
Oh yeah.
And basically, he's already 2 ahead of you.
Not even basically. Jesse. I am 2 ahead of you right now.
Okay. Everyone, let's just calm down here. I've got a question. Okay, Jesse.
All right.
Of all of the individual members that make up the Wu-Tang Clan.
Ooh, fuck.
Who has the best solo career?
Solo? Easy.
Maybe career is maybe even the wrong word. The best solo, career.
Yeah. So our friend over here in stage left on the screen already has the answer written on his shirt.
Yeah.
I think that, and this spans beyond music.
Mm.
As a general personality and even as an actor, it's Method Man. Like, Method Man rules. And I think that of all the dudes, he's got the most unique style outside of ODB. But but I think that if I had to listen to one of them more often than others, I mean, they're all so sick, though. Mm-hmm. That was a really good question, but I choose Method Man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I got another question for you.
Okay.
So you don't drink alcohol, I understand, after listening to this interview.
Are you talking to me or to Jesse?
Oh, Jesse.
Okay. Because for me,
I don't drink alcohol anymore. No, I don't.
Yeah, I never drank.
If you had to drink alcohol.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's go.
We're walking into dangerous territory here, aren't
we? Yeah, trigger warning. I might relapse.
Here we go. Yeah,
You're not.
This will be the last time we see sober Jesse. What kind of unit of alcohol, be it a cocktail, be it a beer, be it a shot, be it a
wine,
anything, be it a wine, what would your one drink be?
When you first said what unit, I was like handle, fifth, box,
gallon.
Yeah.
Beer truck.
Box.
If we're talking about
you went straight for Franzia. Oh, dude.
Yeah. No, Boda for sure. Yeah. Jug. One jug, please. I think at this very moment, if I could transport myself to Scotland and have a Eric Mogridge stage whiskey sized pour of any 18, which is big for what it's worth. That's the largest allotment of whiskey that you can actually fit in a glass. Is
like a pint of whiskey, basically.
It's one Eric stage whiskey. I would pair that stage whiskey with a really nicely rolled cigarette, and I would be happy.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm not going to do either of those things. I'm not going to do those things.
You don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's always the shittiest and sometimes most arrogant sounding answer that I have to give to all those questions. Can't answer. I never drank. I never did drugs. I never did alcohol.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Never
in my life. But the reason behind it is I basically lost both my parents to addictions. So.
Sure.
You go ahead.
I'm sorry to hear
that. I have one for both of you. Because I've after you've just started talking about, or after we started talking about that prog thing, I came up with something, and I would like to have just a short yes or no to that. A lot of people try to push Pink Floyd into the best prog band of all times because I mean, like they have some awesome records, right? No denying. Would you go with that? Would you say like, okay, that is the best prog band ever, or would you say, nah, better ones?
All we can say is yes or no.
Yeah, because otherwise, if I let you two guys talk too much, I'm gonna be awake till 2 a.m. So that's
I'm giving that one a. I'm giving that one a fuck yeah.
Damn.
Okay, cool. That was very clear. Dylan, would you also go with that?
All I can say is yes or no. Jesse got to say fuck yeah, but I'm going to say no.
You could say fuck no, you know.
I wouldn't say fuck no because I have a lot of things to say about this, but I'm just going to say a gentle no.
Okay, so then I would say when we free meet in January, we're gonna have a discussion on that because they are not.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, yeah, like so best prog band ever is just like a loaded question. I don't even know what a prog band is. Like
he's already trying to back out of his answer.
I'm just trying to say that if there's like a generic take on like most prolific genre defining influential rock band, like I think it's hard to find a more unique early on approach outside of like Jimi Hendrix. And like, is Jimi Hendrix a prog band? I don't know.
No.
Like I think that shit was proggy as fuck within the context of rock and roll. So, I don't know.
It was definitely when it comes to openness, and like not accepting any boundaries and rules. When Van Hendrix was surely prog. Surely.
I want to see comments about Pink Floyd being the best prog band of all time. I think
we want to see that too. We want to hear opinions. We want to see fist fights in the comments.
Oh yeah.
So for everybody, I've already hinted at it. The guys are touring with Bellwitch in January and February, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing them on stage once again. And for everybody else, we'll put the tour dates beneath this. And guys, thanks for all your time and thanks for the cool answers.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thank you.
As always. Yeah. So see you guys in January.
Indeed. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye bye.
We'll see you then. All right, bye.